I'm sorry to draw back the curtain, but I'm trying to be like as interesting as I can while telling you actually nothing. Like that's my
challenge accepted. Well, Daniel Radcliffe, welcome to One Nightstand.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No, thrilled to have you here, and you've chosen some great books for us to talk about.
I hope so. Thank you.
You have. Have you always been a big reader?
No, not particularly. I think I was definitely like one of the kids that Harry Potter like got them into reading.
Yeah.
Like I had read the first 2 before we started filming, and then it was like after I got the job I was like, right, I guess I need to read all of these now, and I got into them and they were great. And it was actually when I was about 14 that I started suddenly, like it hit me, and I started reading everything that I could, and there's actually a song by an Irish band called the Divine Comedy. They made a song called The Book Lovers, which I attribute a lot of my what I've read to, because it's a very strange song. It's a list of authors set to music, and after every author there's like a weird soundbite. Like it might be a quote, it might be a noise, it might be something. And as a teenager, I was like, oh, I want to figure out what the sounds mean to the author. So it became like my reading list.
Oh, wow.
And I still have not completed it, but it's made me read things I probably wouldn't have
That's
otherwise.
incredible.
Yeah, it's a good song.
I'm going to
look
have to look that up.
Yeah.
Did you get advanced copies of the books, the Harry Potter books? No, you had to wait till like drop day as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember in the movie The Devil Wears Prada, there's like a subplot that is like she has to find a version of Harry Potter before it's over. I remember we all saw that and we were like, good luck. Like I don't know if anybody. I think famously, Alan Rickman was like the only person from the cast who was told anything in advance, and certainly we didn't get anything.
That's a fun way to get into reading, though. I remember I was on the phone to my nephew earlier, and he's 11, and I was like, "What are you reading at the moment?" And he was like, "I'm on the Goblet of Fire," and I was like, "That's so sweet," because I forget that they get so into it,
and you get and there is something about like kids reading like big thick books.
I loved
it's like
it.
amazing.
I know, and I used to stay up all night just to get through it.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Okay, well, you've chosen some great books. I thought we could start with The Song of Achilles by Madeline.
Great, yeah.
Tell me what you love about that book.
I mean, I love that I don't have to read the Iliad now.
Yeah.
So I did the Odyssey at school,
and
so I was sort of like familiar enough. And the Iliad's always been one that I'm like, I probably won't read that in full, but reading this like amazing interpretation of it, where you feel like you get what I'm assuming is the story of a lot of it. It's a beautiful love story. It's so well and compellingly written. Like I'd read a bunch of books before I read that. I'd read like a lot of. I'm somebody that if I start a book, I cannot not finish it,
too.
which can result in me like reading things for a long time that I'm not particularly enjoying. And so I had just got out of one of those books, and then I read Song of Achilles, and it was so nice just to like not be able to wait to get back to a book again and just like be reading it all the time. It also does like it's a beautiful story. It's beautifully written. It does like the most spectacular job I find of like taking us to like the lowest point you could possibly be near the end, and like everything just tying together. And I want to say like maybe the final 3 sentences of the book, and gives you enough joy and hope that you can walk away from it sort of feeling good without it having felt sentimental or mawkish at any point.
Totally.
Like, it's an amazingly written book.
It's like someone coming above water and like that gasp of like,
yes. Oh my God, thank God, I can go on with my life. But yeah, it's just, and I haven't yet read Circe, but I've been told that
it's very, very
I've been
good.
told it's fantastic, and I've been told that actually if you're into like the myths of the Greek myths even more than the sort of the Homeric things, that it scratches that itch as well.
It's really beautiful, and apparently there's an HBO adaptation of that coming, an 8-parter.
Okay.
But I want them to do this as well.
I know. Yes, it's sort of it's fascinating that that one got picked first.
I know.
In some ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a really it's just a beautiful romantic book.
It's such a lovely love story, and there's also such like accountability in their relationship with each other. Like Patroclus really like is holding Achilles to account, right? In a way that's
and the only person that can.
Exactly.
And and there were bits of it that I remember like enough of having been told about certain chapters in the Iliad or the Odyssey that I remembered. I remember moments happening and going like, oh, this is really brilliantly done, or that you are knitting in. Like, I don't know. I just don't know how you could. It's also such a skill to write something set in the past in any way, but particularly that far in the past where you are where the dialogue doesn't feel forced. It
No.
doesn't feel like you're forcing the time period
No.
of it at all. It just feels like you're really getting to be there, and just like amazing work.
It's so human, and it's interesting. And I was curious how the book has a lot of sort of theories of different, you see lots of different types of leadership. And Agamemnon is sort of like this one that the more pressure he's under, the worse he becomes. And I mentioned to you earlier that I went to see your play on Friday night, and I wonder how that is when you're sort of like anchoring something like that, being a leader on your own sets. Like, do you feel conscious of your leadership style in that way?
Yeah, I actually feel like it's an immense privilege to be a leader on a film set or on a play, because you have the chance to set the tone. I mean, there was something it's something I did notice or become aware of on Potter, was that because like the whole movie was being led by three kids who were kind of pretty happy-go-lucky and having a really nice time, and also really getting on with when older actors were coming in who perhaps would be grumpier on other sets that they were on, I think it was quite hard for them to then do that on a set with a bunch of like happy kids who also like, the camera team or the costume team or the makeup team, they were all like our family on those. So again, older actors couldn't come in and like be horrible to anyone, because they were like, oh no, these kids, like this is their family. So from there and to, I think it's a really, it's a privilege to get to set the tone on something. It's my opinion that nobody should ever be leaving work feeling worse than they did when they arrived.
Agree.
And as an actor, you can be a really big part of like, it's not entirely on you. Like if you've got nice leads on a film, but the director is a tyrant, there's only so much you can protect people from that feeling. But if you've got like, I always think if the first AD, the director, the DOP and the lead actors, if they're all like decent people, it's hard for anyone else to screw it up too much. Like you should still have a nice time.
Oh, that's good. And who wants to not have a nice time? Like,
true, especially when we're acting, guys. I can understand getting annoyed or shouty if you're a surgeon.
Yeah, we're not in the NHS.
Or you're working in the military or working in the hospital. Like that's a different environment. But we're I've had this thing recently with my kid. Where he's starting to get to an age where, like, so for the other day, he saw me on TV for the first time in an ad for the TV show I'm doing, and he just said with a tone that was like, "I'm not crazy, right?" He looked around and said "Dada" to his mum, and then sort of like. Your job is sort of bullshit when you can't explain it to a child.
Yeah.
Like they understand firemen, they understand police, they understand doctors. When you're having to be an actor, it's like, well, we tell stories and we help, the books you read, well, it's like we help people tell stories like those books. So you're like, yeah, no, we can't, nobody can be an annoying, crazy arsehole while you're doing something like that.
I also always feel sorry for the kids that are called like Nepo babies, because I'm like, if you like learn that that's your parents' job and that that's something you can do to earn a living, I'm like, I can see why it feels so compelling to them.
I know. They just have to get better at answering the question.
Yeah.
The only one that's done it right is Alison Williams and a couple of others who are just like, yeah, I did it. And I am an Nepo baby. And of course, like, wouldn't you have taken that opportunity? I feel like I'm not like Nepo baby in the same way, but like my parents were in the industry, so like although I'm saying all this, I would love my child not to do what I do for many reasons, but one of them is that like you avoid the Nepo baby thing if you just go into become a tree surgeon. They'll just do something different. Nobody's going to be comparing us.
No, exactly, because that would be exhausting. I also like the bit where when they arrive at the encampment on the beach, and there's a question of whether Patroclus should sleep in the same tent as Achilles, and he's like, and Achilles goes, Patroclus, I've given enough to them, I will not give them this. And which I think is so like, but how do you walk that line in your own life? Because I feel like you've given a lot to people, and then keeping that boundary for yourself.
I mean, I think it's something that that I have become better at as I have grown up, and the importance of there being some things that are just for you and just for our family. Like I'm very happy to talk about my son. I'm a very proud father, but like his name, I try not to say, I'm sure it'll get out one day or whatever. There are certain things, people say to me about like, people very often ask the question of, how did it feel to grow up on camera? And my response is always that like I didn't. Like I grew up while filming things, but the key moments for growing up, like my first kiss, my first date, my first, whatever it is, that was all private, and that was all stuff that is forever, just mine. And I do think, it's the advice I give to to people when I can, like the art of doing interviews, and I'm sorry to draw back the curtain, but I'm trying to be like as interesting as I can while telling you actually nothing. Like that's my
challenge accepted.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. That's the you know you want to be like a willing participant in interviews, and I want to be interesting and help people sell the show or come see the play or whatever it is that we're doing. But I also think it is really important. I think I used to think that when I was young, when I was like 21 and coming out of Potter for the first time, I was sort of thinking like, okay, the closer the gap is between, or the less of a gap between the real me and the perception of me, then the happier I will be. And that's true to an extent, but you also realize that, I would, at that point, I was talking about like my drinking a lot and I was talking about why I was stopping, and I feel like I wanted all that out there. And then I very quickly realized that actually the more you say about that, people just have more questions. You don't ever
100%.
answer anything definitively. It just provokes more questions. So you kind of start to, but that's, especially when you become famous young, like there's never a blueprint for it. And you've got to just like, you've got to figure that stuff out.
Well, you've done it so elegantly. And I think I admire so much the work that you choose as well. Like, I think you choose so creatively and interestingly.
Well, I'm very lucky to be able to choose. Like most people can't.
Yeah.
Like most actors absolutely have zero autonomy in their career. And so to be able to, pick things basically just based on the criteria of like, will I have a good time doing this? Do I think this is something that's going to make me happy to do?
Yeah.
That's a real, that's a real luxury.
But I feel like with Every Brilliant Thing, there was also, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's such an interesting project to put in the world because of its themes as well. It's probably not just enjoyment for you, but it's like, it's got a really beautiful message.
Yeah, it does. And it's really, I think it's reading something that handles such heavy topics as suicide and depression, like and deals with them, but also manages to do it in a way that is balanced out with humor and with sort of appropriately with humor. And
the humor's good.
And I think to model a character where he is talking about really heavy things, but from the point of view of somebody that is now fine, is a nice thing to sort of have out there, that we don't have to, like, I think there's almost a fear or a stigma around mental illness or mental health and depression, that to talk about it is to risk being infected by it and to risk letting it in, and actually like something only becomes dangerous when it cannot be talked about, and so it's lovely to have a show that really does deal with all that very directly, but manages to find a very life affirming, joyous way of doing all of it. There's a line actually in the show which is listed as a brilliant thing, which is reading something which articulates perfectly something you feel but would never have been able to express yourself. And I feel like as an actor, to me, that's the thing that like this show, Every Brilliant Thing, Swiss Army Man is another one of them, where whenever you get to work on something that you're like, this is saying something beautiful about a part of my personality that I wish to express, but could never have found a way to do that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Are you a therapy person? Do you believe?
I am. Not as much as I should be recently.
No, me too. And my mom was an early section when I was 13, and I remember it vividly, and then how valuable she found therapy. So I've never had that kind of British aversion to it, which, because it is in the UK, it's different.
Yeah, it's definitely still different.
Recently, Ariana Grande was talking about the Nickelodeon documentary, and she said that she thinks that children who are on sets, it should be mandated that they have therapy available to them. Yeah, I
think that's a great idea. And in fact, I think when I've had some conversations with people that are working on the new Potter series, and I think that is something that has been, I don't know, I'm not involved, but I think that's something that they are thinking about this time round as well, which is great.
It's so great.
I mean, I think it's being a child actor in things is like, whether or not you make it out of that in a good frame of mind is so much luck. Like I was so lucky with the parents I had, but also like with so many people on set who looked after me, and like being surrounded by the right people at the right times was so important. But I definitely think, and I think there's been some really, really tragic stories in the last few years. There was a very young man who took his life. He was a young actor, and in talking to people about why that happened, the thing that I have seen mentioned was that he was somebody, as would I have been, who was viewed by other people of like, you got it all. You're an actor. You're so young. You've got money. You've got this and so you feel like you kind of don't have a right to complain. And I think that atmosphere is so hard to get past, that actually some sort of mandated therapy would probably be a really, really great thing.
Totally. And make it for everyone that it's like, even if you are healthy and feel great, this is how you stay that way.
Right. Yes,
not
exactly.
Just
to normal. Right. Exactly. Yes. Normalize it. Like have it. Start therapy before you need it.
Exactly.
Then you've got a language to.
Did they give you much resources as kids, or is it more like?
When we were kids, no.
Yeah, because it's the 2000s.
It was
in
the 2000s in England. Like nobody was thinking that way. But I would say like, it was not. I had so many good people around, and I had so many people on set that were looking out for us. That it was totally fine. But that was more luck than anything else. So I got very lucky with the people.
Well, I'm glad that you guys did get lucky, because you all deserve it. Well, the next book that I thought we could talk about actually has two titles. In the US, it's The Professor and the Madman, and in the UK, it's The Surgeon of Crowthorne.
Yes.
So we've got our own Philosopher's Sorcerer's Stone situation.
Yes. Which is still, I'm fascinated by what happens to that in the TV show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because we did alternate takes for everything. We shot everything twice. There's If you saw it in the rest of the world, it was Philosophers. If you saw it in America, we had the Sorcerers.
Oh, you had to do that on set on the day.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Although I feel like it was mostly Emma. I feel like Emma had to do most of the exposition for like all 7 films. So she was the one who ended up saying Philosophers and Sorcerer's Stone probably the most.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So
this book, tell me what you love about it.
I mean, okay, it's a brilliant nonfiction book. If anybody out there is looking for a book for their dad for birthday or Christmas, I very recommend this one. It's about the making of the Oxford English Dictionary, which at the time, so it starts off with little potted histories of the idea of dictionaries and where they came from and how they were made. And also something we take for granted is that a dictionary exists. And whereas at the time, like the idea of like making a book which had a definition for every word was such an insane mammoth undertaking. And so when James Murray, the person who was like spearheaded the effort to make the Oxford English Dictionary, when he started, it was basically they crowdsourced it. That was how they realized that was going to be the effective way of making it. So they basically put out an ad in the Times, I assume, and they got people they said, anyone who, if you can send us a word and the earliest quotation you can find, so if you know that word is in Chaucer somewhere, or if you know that word is in some obscure Middle English manuscript, like find the reference and send us those things. And then at some point they noticed that an unbelievably high, like a disproportionately high number of the entries they were being sent were from one address. And then they realized that address was, as it was called then, an insane asylum, and that the person that was sending them there's one guy with a lot of time on his hands. And it's about the origins of the Oxford English Dictionary, and it's about the stories of the guy who made the dictionary and this one chap and his sort of insane life story, and which led him to being an inmate here, which led him to being a huge part of creating the dictionary as we know it today.
Yeah, and it's what I loved about it. I mean, it's got brilliant color and the writing's so funny.
Yeah.
Like I was cackling to myself at my desk when I was listening to part of it, because the way he describes Lambeth as somewhere singularly unlovely, where nobody of any consequences wanted to linger, which I just
Jesus, that's
so
rough.
Funny.
So rough on Lambeth, but yes.
It tickled me, but it's also, it's this, I think, on the mental health topic, this like quite compassionate take on people who, the Dr. Minor is a doctor. He's got, I think, a doctorate from Yale, and ends up murdering someone after he's in the American Civil War.
Yes, right, yeah.
And then actually they keep him in these very like quite humane conditions where he has like a bedroom in a library. Right. And I'm like, oh, it's actually quite progressive in some ways.
Right, yeah. And especially compared to then what happened to those places for like the next 100 years, where they just became kind of warehouses where people would be left to just rot. It's a fascinating, like all great kind of historical nonfiction, like it's about what it's about, and then you feel like you're picking up all these details about the world at the time as well, which is it's a great read. It's also like it's a very short read, so it's a very quick one if you would, it's not yeah, it's easily digestible.
It's so fun and just so sort of, yeah, it is really interesting. But it does feel like a very British story. I mean, do you miss the UK much when you're not there, or you do I mean, I know you're happy in New York.
Yeah, I love living here. I miss some things about the UK. Like I miss my friends the most, obviously. Fortunately, my mum and dad spend a lot of time over here as well, so that I don't have to miss them too much. And they are able to see their grandson like all the time, and so it's not. But yeah, honestly, the thing I miss most which is very weird, but is quiz shows. Like we do a quiz better than America, frankly. Like there's Jeopardy over here, which is fantastic, but like I miss University Challenge so much. Like it's University Challenge and Only Connect and Pointless and Mastermind. Like there's just so many good ones. And quiz game show culture exists here and it's great, but like quiz show culture we need to bring it over.
I agree. I miss that, and I miss the sort of like collective experience that you have in the UK around those formats, that because America's so big you don't have the same like after school viewing in the same way.
Although does that exist in the UK now? I guess probably
a little bit
I
think they stream a lot. My sister's kids have TV days and non-TV days, and a lot of them the times they go straight to YouTube or Netflix, but they do sometimes watch the more like family stuff. I
do feel like I was talking about this the other day with somebody, like the 6 o'clock to like 6:40 slot on BBC Two when we were growing up, like Simpsons and I think Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was there too, and it was just like that was appointment viewing.
Totally, well, because we only had 5
and 4.
Well,
sorry,
I'm 88. And you're 89, so we're pretty similar.
We started off with 4 channels, and then Channel 5 happened.
Channel 5 was a revelation.
Like, crazy. And it was like, what was that? Sitcom was Family Affairs. Yeah. Not sitcom, the soap opera. Yeah, it was. God, what a
radical.
How much has changed?
I know. So how long have you been living in America for?
Full time since COVID. So like 2020 really.
Same.
But I've been back and forth since like 2012, I guess. But like,
So one thing I find, so I've been here since 2020 as well, so 6 years now, and I find it very weird not being able to vote. Like, it's a weird psychological experience.
Where you're like you can't help but be very invested.
Yes.
But not actually having any
say. It's a
and I don't think we're allowed to like donate or like help out with election. Not volunteering or anything. So it's I have got a green card now, so I'm on the track to being able to vote and stuff,
and
on
citizenship.
Citizen, but still I think at least 4 years to go to
it is a weird thing. I think of it all the time when people, because I also feel weird about voting in the UK because
we're not there
exactly. And so I'm like, I don't have a right to like tell people in my part of Birmingham what to do, I
know it's a weird that's why I feel like I want to become a citizen here, because I've got I wanted to get a green card because my son is American and I'm gonna need to be able to be here whenever I need to be here, but definitely like it's a weirdly impotent feeling not being able to like get involved.
It's so weirdly impotent is exactly the word. Well, as someone who's OED curious, there are 2 Harry Potter words that have made it in. Do you know what they are?
Ooh. Muggle, presumably.
Yes, that was the first one, and it got in 5 years early. A word's meant to be around for 10 years first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was one more.
Quidditch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well done.
There you go.
I feel like that was at the back recesses of your mind.
No, I was like, well, what's truly like passed into like Muggle is definitely something you can hear people. I've heard people use in almost common parlance now, and there's probably a couple of others in there that like would be eligible at some point. I mean, Horcrux is an interesting concept.
That was the one that was debated.
Was it debated? Okay, cool. Because that does feel like that is a word for like. There's like a conceptually unique
There's an idea.
Thing there.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah. No, it's a very good one. Well, maybe next, given we're on the topic of being Brits in America, we could do How to Hide an Empire.
Sure.
Which is an incredible history book. But tell me what you love about that book.
It's the kind of book that has it has the non-fiction thread that it is following through, and it's incredibly educational about this. I mean, America's history generally, but particularly this little time in American history, which was kind of fascinating because there is the way you behaved like a global power at the time was to have an empire, but it kind of goes against everything America was founded on to have an empire. So it's this weird little in-between phase where they were very acquisitive and took over a ton of, like, you know, the fact that like the red, white, and blue on the flag of the Philippines is because of America. Like the fact that you go to it, I've not been to the Philippines, but apparently you can go there and you'll find like Lafayette streets and like all the same sort of street in Washington, like the same street names that you find here. You know, it's fascinating, and it has the thread that it's following through about the idea of American empire and how that has changed in different periods of time. But it's also just like along the way you learn about so many different things, like the whole section about like guano mining and the guano mining industry was like such a fascinating, and like the idea that before the Haber-Bosch process had existed, that was going to be, you know, that kind of fertilizer was truly more valuable than gold. So the world was running on it, and like, so for a brief period in time, these tiny islands became like the most valuable resources in the world. And then also just like gives you an insight into like what the life of a guano miner. I think you could make a pretty good argument for being one of the worst existences in all of history. It's truly like, if you think you have a bad job, we should all be reading about the guano miners of the late 1800s or early 1900s. But yeah, it's I just remember there were so many things I learned about that book, and it and you know, it informs everything that's happening today in a very interesting way.
Last night I was reading the James Bond chapter, and I was like, there's James Bond, there's like JFK's cropping up having an affair with someone. It's fascinating the amount of colour he brings into it.
And the idea that, you know, there are so many of the things that, like, you know, the rise of the Beatles or of electronics in Japan, and like all these things were kind of happened as offshoots of American empire. Like the fact that the guys who were in the rock and roll bands that like became the Mersey Beat, that became the Beatles, they all learned to play American rock and roll music because the American troops in military bases around Liverpool that's what they wanted to listen to. So like without that, you might not get the Beatles. Like without that, you might not get Sony in Japan. Like there's so many fascinating things like that, where it's just you learn one thing and you learn a million things by learning about one thing.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
I also love the Puerto Rico chapters. I just thought they were so, because I mean it really informed rewatching the Super Bowl, and I was just like, did you watch that?
I sounds like a brag. I can't help it. I was there. I picked the right year to do a sports-based comedy with NBC, because they also had the Super Bowl, so they sent me to that, and I got to go, and it was awesome. But yeah, like whenever hearing anybody complain about Bad Bunny like not being American or any of that stuff, like now hearing them complain about it anyways is heinous. But like after having read that book, you're like, no, you guys need to shut up. Like you get very defensive. Yeah, it's a great reading, and again, just brilliantly written, like and taking huge complicated ideas and things and just making it so clear without ever feeling like you're being talked down to.
And the chapters are so discreet that I feel like it's the kind of book where you could read a chapter one Sunday afternoon, put it down for 2 weeks, and then just read something else on a Tuesday night. And like exactly. Which I love, because you know, we can't always binge.
I mean, you when you told me you'd read all these books like this week in order to do, that's incredibly impressive.
Well, I had to at university. They used to really make us like work through them.
I mean, where'd you go to university?
Oxford.
Yeah, I like the reading schedule at Oxford is crazy.
Actually, Alfie Enoch was in my year at my college.
Oh, cool.
I know, because I remember he walked into our dorm room, and I was like, I know that guy from Birmingham. I just know his face. And then they were like, you don't know him from Birmingham. And I was
once in a AA meeting once, and somebody looked at me and went, do you go to the University of York? I was like, nope, and just sat down. I was like, okay, great, that's where I think like very often you get people who just think they know you from their life.
That's exactly what it is.
Alfie is the lovely, and has always been the loveliest man.
So lovely. And they, you know, I learned from him, like it seemed like such a positive vibe around the whole operation. I remember one time I woke up hungover and walked over to my friend's room and found him and Matthew Lewis just lying on the floor in sleeping bags. I was like, this is very surreal.
And him and Matt were like very, very close, and Matt, and they both grown into like wonderful men. men as well.
Yeah. Have you seen Pillion? Just thinking of
I
queer
have
romance.
not. I have not seen it yet. But I'm so like again happy for Harry and like I've always been so proud of like. It's weird to say you're proud of somebody that's like your age and that you know growing up, but like the career he's made for himself and just doing so much theatre and just like doing really great, interesting work always is it's amazing. It's
so special. But yeah, the binge reading was definitely force fed at university. Do you ever wish you'd gone to university or? No.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things there's a bunch of like common experiences that I didn't have that I suppose I sort of used to feel like I missed out on, but I loved like what I was getting to do instead, and I feel like so much of university is time to figure out what you want to do, and I was like very set on what I wanted to do, so it was just nice to just kind of crack on doing it. And also I did get incredible luxury at the end of Potter. They asked so me and Emma, I dropped out of school when I was 17. Emma carried on and did her A-levels. So what that meant was that there was still at least 3 hours of tuition stuff a week because Emma was still doing school. So in the year after I had left school, but while Emma was still doing it, I basically got Warner Brothers paid for my old English teacher to come in for 3 hours a week just to talk books, with no pressure of exams or nothing. It was just like, tell me. So, that's the only reason I've read chapters of like Ulysses that I definitely would never have picked up on my own, or stuff that like you need help with. Yeah, it was. So I got to, that was my little mini university.
I mean, that is a tutorial experience in a nutshell.
It was great.
Oh my God, how incredible.
Yeah.
That sounds so fun. Yeah, really special. I think, I don't think you missed out on much with uni. I mean, it's a lot of drinking.
Right, exactly. I did that and I was bad at that elsewhere. So I found all the same paths.
We've all
just
had
later.
the same experience. One thing I did wonder after, so I went to see Every Brilliant Thing on Friday and I did a bit of audience participation.
Which one did you read out?
Shall I give you the number and see if you know it, or read it out? Do you want the number?
Give me the number.
995.
995 is Buster Keaton.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know the whole line, but I know that's...
Yeah, it was brilliant and it was so fun. I was so terrified and my friend was just sniggering. She was like, I can't believe you're doing this, but it was so fun. But I kind of, I've sort of made my notes during it, but were
you also a laugh when I got to Whitstable?
Oh,
did you laugh? There's a moment where I mentioned Whitstable.
Yes.
Yes,
I love
and I was
that.
like, somebody laughed, and I was like, okay, we know that at least one English person is in. If I get Whitstable gets a laugh.
Also, when you gave someone a book back, was that a Harry Potter book?
No, on Friday, do you know what it was? Don't worry, there's a lot of Harry Potter books being offered, and I am offering a lot of them back. Yeah. No, that was a copy of the play. It was a copy of Every Brilliant Thing.
Okay.
And I was... In retrospect, now there's stuff I could have done with it, and I'm annoyed that I gave it back because I could have thought of something, but in the moment I was not quick enough.
No, well, one thing I was just fascinated by is like that to me is like probably peak stressful experience what you're doing, like, which I know is, I'm not an actor obviously, but also just, do you get a kick from the being out of your comfort zone?
Yes, I mean I get like there's something whenever I find something, because there's a lot about this play that comes very naturally to me, like the character itself is something that sometimes you just read something and you go like, oh, this just sits in my voice really naturally. Like I sound like I could be this person, and there's in terms of how he talks about into using humor to avoid talking about how you're feeling, or to talk about the way he talks about music. There's a lot I have in common with him. But then there's this huge other part of the play which is so out of my comfort zone in terms of the improvisation and the audience participation. But yeah, there's something thrilling about that. There's something really exciting about getting to push yourself, and also there is something that like is enjoyable about it as well. Like the books, when it like sometimes you'll get two books that are kind of like, and you just get through the moment, they're not great, but sometimes if you can find something funny to say about it, it's great. And if something like the other day we had this wonderful thing happen where like the was it a man playing Sam or a woman?
Yes, man.
Sorry, it was a man. So we had a guy playing Sam the other day, 2 nights ago, who, when I did the books, I gave him the book and he'd read it, and so he knew what it was about. So I could ask him what it was about, and he just immediately knew. And then it's like something really like magical has happened. Like it was really, so yeah, I love all those moments. It's a dual feeling of like terror and delight.
Have you always been? Were you like an adrenaline junkie as a kid, or do you think that you just got exposed to so much like early on that now you need?
Like a bit more. Yeah, I'm not quite like the guy from Free Solo who's just like amygdala has just shrunk to nothing. But like I definitely think it's an interesting, because normally when you're doing a play, the period we're in right now in preview, like you're still terrified, you're still nervous, but you have the prospect of like it will get normal. Like I'll be able to do this without feeling so stressed about it. I don't think I ever will on this play. I think it will be terrifying a little bit up until the final performance, just because that half an hour before the play where we're casting it is so frenetic every time. And but it is, I think that I did get to do a lot of really cool like stunts and action work as a kid that I absolutely no one will let me do now, and it's frankly crazy they let me do it when I was a kid, but like I loved it. And so maybe there is a sense now I just do that with by picking like plays with loads of audience participation.
What kind of stunts did you have to, just like lots of the ones on the movie?
I did like, I mean, I did 6 weeks of underwater filming for the 4th movie. I did a 40, it was probably 35 foot, but I'm rounding. I did a 40-foot roof free fall down a roof in the 4th Harry Potter film. They let me do it 3 times as a 15-year-old.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was great. Like, and again, I've been on sets since then that they absolutely would not let me. But every lunchtime on Potter, I would go and train with the stunt department. So they knew that I was like up for it and actually capable of doing a lot. So and to be clear, I had a wire on me when I did the fall, but they just don't, it's there in case, and they just let you go. And I did get up to the top of like, they asked me to do it, and I was like, yeah, sure. And, I was friends with all the stunt guys, so I wanted to really like show them I was okay with it. And then they brought me up in the cherry picker, in the JCB thing, took me up to my start mark, and I was looking down going, oh shit, like this is maybe more than I should have said yes to, but we're here now. And then it was great.
Can't back down.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, good for you. That's amazing. Well, last I thought we could talk about the Master and Margarita.
Yeah.
One of your favourite books, I gather.
Absolutely,
yeah. Tell me what you love about that.
I mean, I always say, like, I am not a religious person. This book makes me wish that I was. Like, it is the most beautiful story and the most beautiful version of Christianity, which is like entirely about forgiveness and the power of that. And so it's set in 2 timelines, one of which is about the devil coming to Moscow in 1925 and bringing this kind of retinue of extraordinary characters with him. And he needs to come there because he every 1,000 years he hosts a ball, and the sort of guest of honor at the ball has to be a girl named Margarita. It's one of those great things where you just like, if they were making a movie of this now, that would all be explained. Yeah. And you're just like, no, explanation is death. Just have it. This is just how it exists. And so that's one timeline, and the other timeline is kind of about the forgiveness of Pontius Pilate for the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And then those timelines meet, and it does things that like a book, it's insane that a book can do. It's so beautiful, it's so funny, it's so exciting. The characters, like there's a 6-foot tall cat called Behemoth who has a pistol and a drinking problem, and just, I mean, not a problem, so he's got a drinking solution. He's just like, he's constantly drinking vodka, and he's just like, it's I think I read it for the first time as like a 18-year-old, and it's been something that I just think about all the time still, and it's just for what the limits of like literature can do, because it's just so sprawling and huge and fun and it's about writing. It's about the process of writing. The master is somebody who has written something and then almost destroyed it all. The writing of the book itself. There's a line in one of the very famous quotes from the book is "Manuscripts don't burn." Yes, and that was also it's particularly relevant to this book because the book was written in secret from, I think, 1926 to 1940. It was hidden from Stalin.
His desk. Yeah.
His wife found it. His wife also, at one point, I believe he had tried to burn a huge amount of it, and she rescued it. It's a really, it's just an incredible story that I saw someone the other day call Gabriel Garcia Marquez the father of magical realism. Look, I'm not trying to take anything away from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, but I do think that this book, if you're gonna find like a starting point, it's so wonderful. And
you went to Moscow for your 21st birthday. Tell me about that.
I went to Moscow for my 21st. I mean, I was drinking at the time, so it was crazy. And it was and I went to visit his, the apartment where which the sort of the main apartment in the book is based on, and to just sort of be able to walk around and see some of the areas that he describes. Like the book begins with a man being decapitated by a tram, and so like you get to see where that is supposed to have happened, and and then I also another one of Bulgakov's books is A Country Doctor's Notebook, which was then made into a TV series, A Young Doctor's Notebook, with me and John Hamm.
Yes.
So to be able to then like get to bring one of his things to life was so exciting, and one of the great pleasures of my life to get to like the things you're passionate about, you then get to like work on is so cool. Yeah.
I loved, I was talking to one of my colleagues before about Massalit and this idea of the organization that controls creative output. And it's kind of striking. I mean, I feel like you started your career obviously within the studio system where everything is controlled by a million different stakeholders. And I'm sure a lot of decisions about that were made in boardrooms as much as creative rooms. And now I feel like you've really chosen projects with a kind of more, does that feel fair? Like a smaller.
Yeah. Although I think I think it's interesting because I too would make that assumption about Potter and where I was, and I think it probably is more that now. Like when I hear about like the Star Wars movies, I remember when Potter finished, a lot of those guys went on to Star Wars, and there was a sense immediately of like, oh, like we're not really allowed to have scripts here. Like we get scenes or we get sides. It's nothing is disseminated in the same way. Whereas like there was something like I feel like Potter existed just at the end of the era, the kind of analog era where like. It was, we were still getting pages of script revisions every day, and it was less done by, and actually Warner Brothers really left us to it more than you would think. I think like, I'm sure David Heyman and Chris Columbus were getting pressure from them, but they also I think realized that like this is we can kind of just let them go, especially after the first two. They really let us crack on, so it was nice. But yeah, I think I definitely got given this sort of, amazing start where I got to watch all these amazing actors for 10 years and work on these really big movies. But also it kind of meant that like the allure of like the big movie just didn't have. I was like, yeah, I've done that. I would like to work on something where we film more than one scene a day now. And that was, and so like going from Potter to Woman in Black or To Kill Your Darlings and was actually like so exciting and has continued to be. Like I love working at the pace that I get to work at now, and I think it's just it's when you do the most commercially successful thing you will ever do right at the beginning of your career, it frees you from the want to like try to do the most commercially successful thing you're ever going to do. So you're just like, right, let's just do stuff that's fun and that I think has either that's gonna make people laugh and make people enjoy watching it, or that has like a message that is worth creating in some way. There's kind of nothing in between for me. Either has to be really silly and stupid and fun, or really meaningful.
Oh, I love it. Well, I feel like you've got the perfect combo with Every Brilliant Thing. It really I loved it so much.
Thank you so much. That's
so
really
special.
Really nice. Oh, great,
and
thank you.
I felt bad that I didn't when you came over and I was like, I'm interviewing you on Monday, because I was like, what do I say about?
No, but that was the right thing. So I would have wanted you to be and able to enjoy the show.
That's what I thought as well. So I was like, so I could observe it all, but it was brilliant. And thank you so much for doing this. I loved reading your book.
Thank you so much for reading. You were a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.